To begin the hour, San Francisco writer, humorist, solo performer Randy Rutherford tells us some touching and laugh-out-loud stories about himself, his adventures, and his challenges. Stay with us for the man who sings and tells stories at the edge of the world. The intuitive Randy Rutherford is a dedicated musician, humorist, storyteller who has severe hearing loss, but manages to play and sing in tune. He is a ramblin' man who makes his living in the entertainment groove, often at fringe festivals. He is in Vancouver to perform at the Havana, and it is my pleasure to welcome Randy Rutherford to Studio 4 to tell us more. Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Well, who taught you to sing and ham?
My grandma Katie. I had a crippled grandma Katie. That's the word she used, crippled. She had rheumatoid arthritis, and she was in a wheelchair. But as a child, I remember, I talk about it in the show, where that was my version of going to church, singing with Grandma Katie. And my mother was sort of starstruck too, I believe, and she sang, and we would go to the movies and play act and that. So they both wanted to be movie stars, I think, and they kind of instilled it in me.
So you had a Betty Grable mom.
I did. Wow, you did your homework. Yeah.
I did. I watched this
my mom
entire
kind of
thing,
looked like
all
Betty.
2 hours of this.
Yeah.
A vivid storyteller, a man, a guitar, and an armful of stories.
Yeah. Well, actually, what I started doing, I started out playing guitar and singing in the 70s in Alaska, and then I started having problems with my hearing. But I would always, before that, when I would play, learning to play the guitar was just an excuse to get on stage in front of people. And then I would play guitar, but I would tell little funny stories about my life in between songs. And then I gave up the guitar, and then all of a sudden here I am again, and now I play the guitar little bits as I tell big stories about my life. So I'm still kind of doing the same thing I was doing when I was younger.
Was it difficult for you to talk about hearing loss to an audience, to share that with your audience?
Well, this is my 5th one-person show, and all of my shows, the subject matter is about loss and overcoming obstacles in my life personally. So all the subject matter is pretty loaded with real stuff, emotion, and I put in lots of comedy because I don't want everyone crying during the show. But I tried to hide my hearing loss for as long as I could. Most people with a hearing loss, once they realize something's wrong, the average person goes 7 years before they go and see an audiologist. So there's a lot of denial and a lot of pretending like you're hearing when you don't hear. So there's a lot of difficulty.
When you went to see the doctor, did you have some hope it was just a plugged ear or an eardrum with a hair on it or something like that?
Going to put a straw in there and blow the hair off and that'd be okay. I did. I was actually tending bar in Alaska, and this is in my 3rd show, and during the Alaska pipeline boom. And this is in my early 20s before as a child, I always said huh and what a lot. So people didn't think I paid attention. They thought I was slow, but I don't think I ever had perfect hearing. And I can't remember your question now.
Well, I'm just wondering, when you went to the doctor.
I saw the doctor when I was working in the bar, tending bar, before I started playing guitar and singing. I could hear people. I had trouble hearing them across the bar, but I thought it was because people were drinking and mumbling. But I went to the doctor, and he says, you have a mild loss. It may be hereditary. And, you know, I was in my early 20s. I knew if I was in an environment where it was noisy, I couldn't hear, but everything else felt okay, so I just kind of forgot it. Then I started playing guitar and singing, and that was about 3 years later. Then in the show, I talk about going back to the doctor, and it's gotten a lot worse.
He said, it's inoperable. There's nothing we can do for you.
Right.
We have a clip of you, I believe you're at the Fancy Moose Saloon or someplace like that.
Only in Anchorage.
Only in Anchorage at the Fancy Moose. I think you were going out with Molly at the time, your lovely girlfriend Molly, the beautiful Molly. You were singing and you tell the story. Let's see.
I wonder why, babe.
you don't know by now. Ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. You don't matter anyhow. When the rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out. What's that ringing, that buzzing noise? What's that sound? Where's that coming from? It's not the guitar. And I look up, and Pete's standing right in front of me. Randy, what's the matter? Why'd you stop? What's that ringing, that buzzing sound? I don't hear nothing. Randy, it sounds great. Oh, it's my wife's birthday, Randy. So I was wondering if you could do, yeah, good. We thought you'd walk away with me. No. And all of a sudden, all the sound goes out of the room. And I just see his lips moving.
Do you read lips today? Is that part of being able to hear better?
Right, my brain has sort of learned to do that. I would have more difficulty hearing, being able to tell what you say if I couldn't see your lips. In the show, I talk about Roxanne. My audiologist says my brain's developed this little stenographer, and I call her Roxanne, and she's up there typing frantically away, trying to take what I hear and turn it into English so I can understand, because I only hear vowel sounds, A, E, I, O, U. I don't hear the consonants, B, C, D. So I'm always guessing. Did she say drink or pink or sink? So Roxanne is up there trying to tell me what the person is saying to me.
Did she say Mark Twain or Mark Payne?
Exactly.
And
sometimes it's very embarrassing what I hear. I can't repeat what I hear.
I bet.
But I do that in the show. I sprinkle comedy during the show, and I show you how Roxanne is trying to show me what I can hear and what I can't hear.
Because Mark Twain said, as you know, some of the worst things in my life never happened.
Right. You did what? You watched the whole thing?
I watched that whole darn thing. Well, I've been on holidays. I was on holidays last week, so I had time and I enjoyed it. It wasn't work, I promise.
That's great. Thank you.
Because if it is work, I flipped through.
Right.
But I watched the whole performance. I did not ever see you do a Shelley Berman impression, and some of the things you did in the olden days.
In high school.
In high school. When you found out your hearing was severely impaired, were you angry?
Yeah.
Depressed?
Yeah, I went through like a really dark, I locked myself in that little trailer, and it was summertime in Alaska, so there's 24 hours of sunlight up there, so I taped blankets over the windows in the trailer and just watched TV and ate, chocolate ho-hos, chocolate-covered ding-dongs, and potato chips, because, a person needs vegetables. And I just kind of locked myself away and pushed Molly away from me, and I stopped performing, and I went, poor me, look at me, poor me, why did God do this to me, poor me. And eventually, in the show, I talk about going on vacation, trying to get away for a while and visiting friends in San Francisco. And Molly had given me that little set of watercolor paints because she painted watercolors. And it said Guitar brand. I wish I still had them. Each tube said Guitar watercolors because I was giving up the guitar, and here are these little tubes. And I was getting bored lying around my friend's condo at their pool south of San Francisco. So they'd be at work all day. So I took out Molly's watercolor paints, and I found these National Geographics. And I started painting birds out of National Geographic. And I remembered some of those songbirds that I could hear when I was little because my grandma Katie in her wheelchair would be on the back porch, and she'd be singing the sounds that the birds make. And she'd say, "Hear that, Randy?" And she'd tell me what song that bird was singing. I could hear that when I was younger.